And good evening. It's Ken Kreitzer for CaMMVets Media. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, and veterans proudly since 2008. And it is now Troy University game week. We'll talk tonight a little bit about Army's real disappointing 27-24 loss to Boston College at home on Saturday amidst pouring rain. And this week's game against Troy, and the forecast is for more rain this weekend, amazingly enough. In fact, the Troy coach was saying he's making sure they practice. He was looking forward to Wednesday when it's expected to rain down there. Jack McGurk, good to see you, calling in from Pelham.
Good to see you too.
He'll tell us about Air Force and Navy. And Richard Miller, good to see you from Florida. Will tell us a little bit about some of the other games in college football. And Steve Shalou, who did not let a little bit of rain bother his tailgate on last Saturday versus Boston College. Steve, how are you tonight?
When it's raining, we're training.
That's right. That's right. And boy, did it rain on this past Saturday. Going through the game, BC got off to a 6-0 lead, and they missed their extra point. And then Army got a field goal after after an interception. And that was one of the things that Coach Munkin was upset about afterwards when they didn't score a touchdown when they got the interception from Quinn Hammond in the second quarter. Steve, was that just a kind of a disappointment for Army? They couldn't convert that interception into 7 points.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few disappointments during the afternoon. That definitely was one of them, for sure.
Because NBC scored. They went 75 yards. And their quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, got the first of his 4 touchdowns. Well, actually, the second of 4 touchdowns on the day. He scored all 4 of Boston College's touchdowns on the day. What did you think, Steve, of the Boston College quarterback, Castellanos? He ran for 157 yards and he passed for 73 more. The transfer from Central Florida.
Yeah, he ran hard. It definitely was something that we couldn't seem to stop, and he got us into a lot of third and shorts, and since we weren't stopping him, they gathered confidence as the day went on, and it was tough. It was tough to see that we weren't able to really contain him.
Well, the second half got off to a real good start for Army with Zach Mundell's 53-yard kickoff return to start the second half. Got Army in good position. And then Tyrell Robinson, one of Army's really best players the last couple of years. He had a terrible leg injury last year. Got back out on the field versus Boston College, and he got a 10-yard touchdown to get Army back to trail 13-10. Steve, how good it was to see Tyrell Robinson out there.
I mean, it's amazing on a number of different levels, right? Tyrell always plays with a lot of heart. Got injured in the Wake Forest game last year. It was a pretty gruesome injury. The fact that, just about a year later, he was able to get back out there. And, when you come back mid-season without being able to practice and do those things during camp, it's interesting to watch because his first contact was probably live, so there's a big mental aspect to a injury of that kind of, how is it going to react during a full speed cuts? How is it going to hold up? How am I going to take a hit? In each play that he was playing, I'm sure he garnered more confidence as it happened. But, he had to be nervous, excited. I'm sure there were a ton of mixed emotions going through. And the fact that he found pay dirt was super exciting for him.
but then Boston College scored, went 75 yards. Castellanos, a 10-yard rush. But then Army got back on the board, went 69 yards. Hayden Reed scored. And going into the fourth quarter, Army trailed 2017, but then went ahead on a really neat drive, 61 yards. And Tyson Riley, we were talking about him in the press box, that we hadn't seen much of him during the game. And they line him up at wide receiver. And then the next play, they throw him the ball right over the middle, right on the goal line, catches it for 9-yard touchdown play. That was a different way to use Tyson Riley.
Yeah, one of the things coming into preseason camp that I thought was going to happen is with a Tyson Riley type body, and we're starting to go a little bit smaller at running back, and is to use them as H-backs, that quasi tight end type player. And I think I think he's starting to come into his own playing that type position.
Well, certainly another way to use his experience and skill. I remember in August practice, I was watching him and they were throwing him some short out pattern passes. And, but there's still nothing like Tyson Riley lining up behind just off the tackle, and then having Jacoby Buchanan follow him when they need short yardage. I guess then the play of the day in the fourth quarter, Army is moving the ball. They've got a 24-20 lead, and I think it's 3rd and 2, and Bryson Daly runs the ball. He appears to pick up the first down, and then he decided, it looked to me like he tried to lateral it, and it turned out to be, it was called a forward pass, and he was over the line of scrimmage, so it was called back. But I thought he looked to me like he was trying to lateral it, and Coach Munkin kind of thought the same. We were talking about it today. What was your read on that play, Steve?
Well, the option has lost a little bit of its luster, in terms of how many teams run it. They were always taught, keep that pitch relationship between the quarterback and the running back. And a lot of the times you would see a ball pitched downfield because that pitch relationship was always going, and this was an old school type pitch relationship where, he had the idea of pitching it out to him. And it was they talk about it being a game of inches. It was inches forward. And it could have been, it was the difference in the ball game. Good idea, good execution, just a smidge off.
Yeah, I mean, from the press box, I was right on the line, and you could see the ball was definitely moving forward. And it was unfortunate because if he had just taken the first down, Army, might have pushed on, run off a lot more of the clock. And then came down to Boston College, got the ball back after a short punt. Cooper Allen had a bad punting day. At least he had 2 short punts, one in the first half and one critical one in the second half, and gave Boston College reasonably good field position. And they went down the field and scored just moments before the end of the game, about less than a minute to go. Let's see, Jack, what was your thought on the game?
Well, it was an interesting game. The first half was rough. Army only getting a field goal there. I remember watching right before halftime, before the teams went into the locker rooms, there was an interview with Coach Munkin, and he called the first half embarrassing. The weather definitely played a role. It was almost like a monsoon up there near the end of the first half. You mentioned Cooper Allen, the punter. He had a hard time. I don't know if it was because the ball was slipping because of the rain, that he kind of muffed a couple of punts. But there was that. But Army came back in the second half. And then there was, as you mentioned, that illegal forward pass play. It looked like it was going to be a touchdown, but was called back. And then at the very end of the game, there was, Boston College marched down the field, and then they're getting into the red zone. And there was a big question for Army. Do you, let these guys score and then get the ball back and try to march down the field? Or do you make a stand and try to stop them at the goal line? And ultimately, they tried to make a stand and ended up burning through timeouts. Ultimately, Boston scored. Army got the ball back with a little bit of time, but unfortunately, it ended when I believe there was a fumble, and Boston College recovered it, right at the end of right near the end of regulation. Tough loss for Army.
Yeah, Boston College scored on 3rd and goal from the 1 with 25 seconds left on the clock. And Steve, did you think Army had a shot at on defense of stopping Boston College on downs there?
Army always has a shot doing that. Think about the Army-Navy game at Mikey Stadium with the goal line stand. And, there have been multiple. I believe there was a really good goal line stand in the bowl game against Missouri, right? So our ability to reach down, and one of the things that, when you're not as quote unquote athletic as the team that you're playing, maybe, or the receivers you're playing against, when you start getting down into the red zone and you start getting in within the 10, they don't have to worry about getting beat behind them a little bit, so that they, when we get crowded into the line of scrimmage, we can play a little bit tighter because we don't have behind us to worry about. So we get tougher as it gets closer. So in our mindset's always fixed bayonet. So, we always have a chance. If I'm going to take a choice with the offense that we run and the quarterback play that we have, which is not run and gun, I'd always want to make a stop versus letting them score and then try to come back and win at the end of the game. So, I think they made the right choice, and, they try to dig in and have an inspired stand.
Yeah. I think some concern about the amount of rushing yardage. BC at 336 rushing yards. 299 less a couple of losses on the 4 touchdowns. How did you feel the Army defense is holding up? Obviously, it was a day that teams were not going to try to pass very much with the on and off very heavy rain. Was a day for rushing. How do you think the Army defense was holding up?
We got run on. We got a run on. Their power game was there. They didn't throw the ball very well. We didn't. We never really got them off schedule consistently. So in terms of holding up, it wasn't a great showing against the run. And on a day like that, with the rain and time of possession and all those things being a huge factor, I think they were able to impart their will a little bit on us. And we had a couple stops that we needed to make that we didn't make happen. But, Boston College, again, what we talked about last week, these are big, lumbering linemen. They're leaning on you. They've got athletes at running back. Quarterback was a heck of an athlete. So it's tough. It's tough to be up against that, because we were probably slightly undersized on the defensive line against that. And just, you get tired, you get beat up a little bit.
Certainly. Now, Richard, let's go through some of the big games in college football this past week. So Georgia over Kentucky, big. Michigan 52-10 over Minnesota, and Oklahoma won their game in the Cotton Bowl against Texas 34-30.
Typical high scoring game as it usually is. UCLA defeated number 13 Washington State 25-17. Ohio State 37-17 over Maryland. Ohio State stays undefeated at 5-0. LSU got by number 21 Missouri 49-39. Missouri's first loss. They're 5-1. LSU improves to 4-2. Let's see. Also, number 11, Alabama defeated Texas A&M 26-20. Alabama is now 5-1 on the season. You have number 5, Florida State, improving to 5-0 on the season, defeating Virginia Tech. The defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs defeated Kentucky 51-13. Georgia is now 6-0 on the season. Michigan, number 2, all over Minnesota 52-10. Michigan is 6-0. And Ole Miss, number 16, a 27-20 victory over Arkansas. Ole Miss is 5-1, while Arkansas is 2-4.
You know, I'm a little disappointed in Syracuse. They lost 40-7 to North Carolina. So they've lost 2 since Army faced them, losing to Clemson at home and then losing big time to North Carolina. Are you surprised at that, Steve? That they looked pretty good when we played them, or Army did.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina's a heck of a ball club, and Clemson's got a lot of talent. I think they've played under, I mean, 2 things on the Clemson game. Syracuse usually plays Clemson very well. They've beaten them a couple of times here as of late. But I mean, Clemson is recruiting 4- and 5-star athletes at a much bigger clip. So I think Syracuse just reached a buzzsaw against those 2 teams, and those are 2 legitimate powerhouses that are playing better.
Okay, UTSA over Temple, and UAB over South Florida. UConn got a win. Just look, I'm fascinated now looking at the American Conference, which with the possibility of Army joining them in the near future. Let's go to Jack McGurk and hear a little bit about Navy pulled off a win over North Texas, and Air Force continued to look good this weekend.
Well, Air Force said they had a bye week. They're going to be hosting Wyoming this weekend. But Navy, had their first AAC win of the season, 27-24 over North Texas. Navy had 406 yards total offense, 331 rushing. Alex Texa led midshipman with 137 yards rushing. He had a 39-yard touchdown run in the second quarter for Navy's first score of the game, and a 21-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. Quarterback Blake Horvath started the game and rushed for 88 yards and 18 carries. However, he left the game late in the second quarter with a thumb injury. He's actually now out indefinitely because of that thumb injury.
Who is that, Jack?
That's Blake Horvath, the quarterback.
Yeah. He's looked good for them.
And Ty Lavitide took over after that. He took over after that injury, and he threw a 26-yard touchdown pass to Nathan Kent with 43 seconds left in the first half. Anton Hall had a 1-yard touchdown run in the third quarter. On defense, Mitty Williams and Luke Paris led the team with 9 tackles each. The defense actually had 8 sacks in the game. And the midshipmen are now 2-3, 1-2, 1-2 in the AAC, and they are on the road at Charlotte on Saturday. But they lost a quarterback now indefinitely with that thumb injury.
Jack, who started the game? Was it Levitine or was it him? Because Levitine's been starting, and then
Horvath started the game, and then when he got injured, Levitine came into the game.
Because they've been high on Horvath, but they haven't started him, and I think he may have won the job and then lost it that week. And Levitine's got like 9. He's got like 9 lives. He always ends up back in there. Last year and this year, he was out. He's in. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, everybody, your best ability is your availability, right? So
yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll all be back at Mikey Stadium on Saturday for game against Troy. No one knows where Troy is. It's in Alabama. It's right near a couple of Army bases, actually, not far from Fort Benning and is now renamed. Do you know that one, Steve? What Fort Benning was renamed?
It's always Fort Benning to me.
Okay, yeah.
Ken?
Yeah.
I looked up. It says it's in Troy, Alabama.
Troy, Alabama. Yeah. Well, Army
not
was
Troy,
there,
New York.
There's a couple of Army bases just over across the line, and it makes sense. And they've had really a very strong athletic program and a lot of success. They're 4-2 on the year. And last year they finished number 19 in the country, not just in their conference, but overall nationally. They have a really strong program. So far, this year they defeated SFA 48-30. Then they lost to Kansas State 42-13. They lost to James Madison, a close game, 16-14. They beat Western Kentucky, a close game, 27-24, and then 2 straight blowouts. They beat Georgia State in Atlanta, 28-7, and they soundly beat Arkansas State 37-3 last week. And they come in with the leading ground gainer in the country, or in the nation, as Dean Darling likes to say. Kamani Vidal had 245 yards, 3 touchdowns versus Arkansas State. And he has 835 yards so far this season in 6 games. And was Offensive Player of the Week in the Sun Belt. Their quarterback, Gunnar Watson, 10 touchdowns, averaging 256 yards throwing a game. And they got a big guard that stuck out on the 2-deep chart by the name of Daniel King, a right guard, 6'5", 335. And I said to Coach Monken, that sounds like an NFL player type, at least in size. But they have the typical big offensive line. Steve, any thoughts about Troy?
Well, I mean, interesting enough, Troy's a program that just went to the FBS of 2001. So it's a relatively new program into the Division 1A or FBS, as we call it now. And they use quite a bit of the transfer portal, as you might expect that they would. And they're, talented. Vidal, that running back's 5'8", so he's not a big running back, but he's still 215, 220. So he's thick and he's quick. So, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for us. Can we shore up the run defense this week? It's going to be raining, so it's going to be more run oriented. So we're going to have to be a little bit more stout at the point of attack. And they're big across the board. You're in the 300s at their center is he's 319. So and he played at Oklahoma State. So they've got some transfers that are coming in that are playing at bigger programs. So we're going to have our, it's not going to be easy game. If we looked at how we played them last year, we played them tough and then we let up a little bit at the end and got beat. But, I'd love to see us get back on track. We've got to win our home games. If anything, we've got to win our home games, and it's got to start this week. Yeah,
no, it's key because going on the road to LSU next week is going to be a particularly tough spot. One thing I looked at, looking at their defense, they have been keeping their opponents on rush defense to 86 yards a game. Under 100, they've been giving up about 199 a game on passing, 184, 114 completions of 184 passes. So they have a pretty good run stopping defense, and Coach Monken talked a little bit about that today at his press conference. So it's going to be an interesting matchup to go against a team with a big time running back and a good run stopping defense on a rainy day. So we'll see what happens. Steve, we got it. Now there's one key question I have for Steve Shalou this week. And, it's going to really fascinate. It's going to really challenge Army fans this week that the game is a 3:30 start. It's not a 12 noon. So, Steve, the question of the day is, what are you going to do all morning and half the afternoon before the game starts?
Well, I am a creature of habit. We arrive at the tailgate at 8 a.m. to get started, and this week should be no different. So we will be there at 8 a.m. The difference is we'll have our, a satellite dish and the TVs on so that we can watch some of the early action. And I'm looking forward for Jack talking about, the games. If we're playing at 3:30, chances are Navy or Air Force is playing earlier. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that. But we'll watch a game, watch game day, and we'll watch a game and get there early, get ourselves dug in and get ready to go, rain or shine. So we'll be excited about that because we have a lot of 12 o'clock games. It's tough. It's tough to get everybody and those who come to West Point. If you don't get there early, you get caught up in some traffic and you don't get a chance to get there and get settled into your tailgating routine and get to hear the bagpipers come out and listen to the band and watch all of that and even get down to Black Knight Alley and watch the players walk on and do all that other stuff. You have to be able to do that. This is a great week to be able to enjoy that with a 3:30 kick and still be able to get some tailgating in. So I think we ought to take advantage of it, even though it's going to be a little bit rainy. So get out there and let's watch that ball game.
Yeah, rain doesn't bother the Steve Shalou tailgate, and he'll be out there. And I'm going to check what time the Parade of Cadets is scheduled. Hopefully they'll be able to do it this week. They'll, and then the team arrives
12 or 12:30 for the parade.
Okay.
It's usually 3 hours prior to kick, so I think it's 12:30.
Okay, we'll double check that, and then the team normally arrives at Mikey Stadium at 2 hours before the game, so they'll be in about 1:30. Steve, how does that affect the players? I mean, they're all creatures of habit. Then all of a sudden you've got to hang around. I mean, they're at a hotel for the morning, and instead of getting set, very specifically to get out and get on the bus at a certain time, they've got a few hours to go. It's like sort of like what you have to do when you have a night game. How is it for the team adjusting, to a day of a game when it's a late afternoon or an evening start?
Yeah, so when I played, especially on like a 3 versus a noon start, there were no clocks around, only countdown clocks. How many minutes to the special teamers getting out there, how many minutes before linemen go out. There's a hack board that's there that has the times on it, and then there's a clock that counts down to kickoff. So you never really know what time that is. Now your diet gets off a little bit, what you eat and when you eat it, because you're trying to peak, having a breakfast, and then you're probably going to throw a snack in there, or you're going to have a later breakfast so that you have enough time to digest a little bit and not be hungry, but still have the energy that you need to have. So, and college programs and pro programs, they're on top of that all the time. They've got studies and they look into the diet and when that's going to be. So, you just adjust the clock a little bit. This is only going to be about 3 hours off. You just adjust that a little bit. You go from there.
Well, I remember when they started doing the 12 noon starts and what an adjustment it was for everyone getting there early and then doing a lot of tailgating after the games. But it's sort of like the starting time for the Army Navy game. So we're kind of used to that routine. Well, let's go with Richard. What do we see coming up? I see Thursday night this week, SMU is going to play East Carolina, and Friday, Lane's going to play Memphis in games in the American.
Also, as well, this weekend, you have number 6 Penn State taking. No, wait, is it? I think that's no wait. That's the following. Okay, number 11. Number 11 Alabama is taking on Arkansas. Also, number 4, Florida State will put their 5-0 record on their line against Syracuse. Number 2, the Michigan Wolverines. That's where Fox's Big Ten pregame show will be against Indiana. Michigan is 6-0 on the season. The Ohio State Buckeyes will be taking on the Purdue Boilermakers. 12 o'clock. Ohio State is 5-0, while Purdue is 2-4. The defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs will be putting their 6-0 record on the line at First Bank Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee, against Vanderbilt. Also, you have number 8 Oregon taking on number 7 Washington. Both teams are 5-0 on the season. 3:30, you have number 19 Tennessee taking on Texas A&M. Texas A&M is 4-2. Tennessee is 4-1 on the season. You have
That should be a
also
good one, Steve. I'm sorry, Richard. That should be a good one. Oregon at Washington, both undefeated, a 3:30 start. That'll be a good one.
No doubt.
And go ahead, Richard.
Let's see. You also have at night. You have number 18 UCLA 4-1 taking on number 15 Oregon State, which is 5-1. Number 17 Duke is 4-1 taking on NC State, which is 4-2. Missouri is playing number 24 Kentucky. Both teams are 5-1. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the USC Trojans resuming their rivalry Saturday nights at 7:30.
That's at Notre Dame this year.
Yeah.
They always play in October in Indiana, and Chance. That should be an interesting one. Go ahead.
Let's see. Auburn is taking on LSU at 7:00. LSU is 4-2 on the season. Auburn is 3-2 on the season. And number 14 Louisville is 6-0 taking on Pitt. Pitt's 1-4. Louisville is ranked number 14 in the country.
See, Stanford's going to play Colorado, so a chance for Colorado to go to 5-2. And anything else? Well, we said USC and Notre Dame. And Jack, what do you have on? You said Air Force is out at. It's got Wyoming this week.
Yeah, Air Force is going to be hosting Wyoming this week. Big game. You know, Air Force is 5-0 and Wyoming's 5-1. And that game is going to be looks like a 7 p.m. start on Saturday night. The Navy game is earlier in the afternoon at 2 p.m. They're going to be on the road at Charlotte. Charlotte's having a rough year. They're 1-4, so this could be a game that Navy wins. And speaking of Navy, there was an interesting story this past week about the Army-Navy game. Maybe you guys heard about this, that there was a New Jersey-based travel agent that said that 60 reservations that were made for hotels for the Army-Navy game up in Massachusetts were canceled by a hotel management company that needed the room to house migrants. And they're saying that the people who booked rooms are either active military families, retired military, or parents of Army cadets or Navy midshipmen. So hopefully they get that straightened out up in Massachusetts.
Well, stay in Rhode Island. Stay in Providence.
Well,
it's an unfortunate situation, but Steve, go ahead. What's your thought?
Well, one of the big things about, you know, when you travel to an away site other than Philadelphia or Baltimore or something like that, they have to look at travel time for the academies, and a big portion of this with getting the bid, because of the distance for Annapolis, they had to put up all of the midshipmen, and they're doing that in Providence.
They're doing that in Providence. Okay,
yes, so the majority of the Navy camp is going to be in Rhode Island, and then the majority of the Army camp is going to be in Massachusetts, and that's right now I think where the effect has been on these hotel rooms.
Yeah, well, I imagine there's a lot of Navy people in Newport, and I imagine there'll be some events in Newport for the Annapolis crew. And that's interesting. So they're gonna put up all 4,000 midshipmen in hotels in Providence. You know, Providence is a pretty good convention city. Actually, it's been rebuilt, remodeled over the past 30 years, and it's a very attractive downtown to visit. I guess I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce because I went to school at Providence College. So there will be interesting, but that's unfortunate, you know, a real world situation hitting, impacting the game.
One of the games that you've missed out on, Richard, is that Coastal Carolina is playing App State as we speak, which is interesting for Army because we have Coastal Carolina coming in later in the season, and Coastal Carolina is beating App State 17-10 in the second quarter, that quarterback McCall is still slinging it around. He's trying to beat a record in terms of number of touchdowns thrown. So that is going on as we speak on ESPN.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to watch the quarterback Zapp, who played at Western Kentucky, is now with the Patriots. And I saw him on Sunday, and it's great to see because he was someone who came out of very small college, and then he got to Western Kentucky and he had a spectacular year. And he came in to play Army and put a lot of points on the board. But now he's playing for the Patriots. Okay.
Could start pretty soon if Mac Jones doesn't figure it out.
Yeah. Well, it's I hope we don't have 2 rainy Saturdays in a row. But Steve Shalou knows how to handle the weather and not let it bother him. And had a big gathering this past Saturday. But I felt bad for the, like the Corps cadets and the fans that were just out there. A lot of fans, were pretty good through the first half. Corps was out there the whole game. What is it like for the Corps to be out there in the rain on a day like that?
Well, in typical Army fashion, you're wearing your Army gear, which is about 80% effective. So it's never really fully effective against the rain. But, and the best way to attack something like that is just have fun. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any shorter. So you might as well embrace it and embrace the suck, as they say, embrace the suck, and just kind of, you're going to get wet and just get dry as soon as you can afterwards. But you just embrace it and hopefully you have a good game that makes you feel better and go by faster. There, a little bit of my tailgate saga, and if anybody's ever been around my tailgate, they know I'm a little bit of I'm a stickler on securing my tents, because you never know, being on the side of a mountain, that when a rogue storm is going to come through or something else like that. So I have various anchors that I bring with me to make sure that these tents are tied together and then tied down well. And right next to the tailgate that we had the other day, one tent wasn't tied down. It was lifted up in one of the wind gusts and came down and smashed a sunroof in a car right across the way from us. Yeah. So
I didn't hear about that.
So, so having a sunroof smash is tough enough, but when it's raining an inch an hour on top of that, so that the person's tent who did that, they actually took the tent off of the frame and actually draped it over the car so the sunroof wouldn't get any more rain in it. So it was a good action on their part to do that. But that happened. And just, as I'm looking at the weather and being a former aviator, I'm always looking at weather. The time at which the rain is going to start, it seems to be pushing later and later on Saturday. So right now, it was earlier in the day, and it's still, around 3 o'clock, it's still looking heavy, but that band is kind of pushing towards the trend data is moving towards the system coming through a little bit later in the day. Hopefully it gets us a kick that gets us, kicked off before it rains. And then, but we'll see. Weather's, they're on their own schedule.
Okay. Well, we will look forward to being out there, and another good day of Army football. Jack or Richard, any other comments? Any other college football observations?
There was a heck of an upset with Notre Dame losing over the weekend.
Yeah. Oh, I was very much shocked by that. Excuse me. I was very much shocked by that, Jack. I wouldn't even think of even Notre Dame losing that game. It was a shocker right there.
Okay.
I most only, let's see, Notre Dame. Let's see.
Well, losing to Louisville. Louisville's
Yeah.
a good team, 25th ranked. Notre Dame
Louisville.
went into the game 10th ranked and lost 33-20 on the road.
Yeah.
Not good.
So it happens when you go on the road.
Shocking.
Now, Steve Shalou, I got to ask you, is there an early prep for Louisiana. I don't know if you're going. Are there any must-stop places we must go to in Baton Rouge?
Not familiar with Baton Rouge. I am not going to the game. I've got some things here locally that I need to attend to, and the game is actually going to be a night game. So they announced it's going to be a 7:30 kick. So I'll be able to watch that because it might be the thing I need to do is during the day. So I'm excited about that. This week, this week is kind of a meh college football weekend in terms of matchups. There isn't a ton of anything that's really catching my eye. That's going to be an interesting portion of the schedule. So we'll see how that all shakes out for the weeks to come.
Okay, well, let's go through and do our fearless predictions for this week, as Army will host Troy, a 3:30 start on Saturday at Mikey Stadium. Troy from the Sun Belt Conference. And Richard, what's your thought on the game?
My thought on the game, Army's got to win. I'm gonna go 17-10 Army.
Okay.
Army's gonna break out of their slump.
Okay. Jack,
the
what's
start
your
of it.
thought? Very good, Richard. Thank you. And
Well,
Jack?
I looked up the history between these two teams, and the thing is, they've only played each other once before, and that was the game last season that Troy won by a whopping score of 10-9. So I think this one could be a close one again, but I like Army in this game as well. I'm going to go 17-14 Army.
Okay. A little closer, 2 touchdowns for Troy. And Steve Shalou, what's your thought on this game?
Army 21-20 in a nail biter.
21-20. Okay. Well, I would say, it's getting to be a year that the team's going a lot on how Bryson Daly can handle the offense and move the offense. He showed improvement last week against Boston College, completing his touch passes and nice touchdown pass to Tyson Riley. But he's just got to keep improving to lead the offense. Hopefully, Cooper Allen's bad day punting was just a one-time occasion. And hopefully, Tyrell Robinson can really build off his first game where he had almost 100 yards between his rushing. Tyrell Robinson gained 31 yards on 7 rushes, 4.4, and then also caught 1 pass for 21 yards. So I could see those numbers doubling against Troy. The Army defense has got to handle the best running back perhaps in the country right now, and that is going to be a challenge to see how they can do. So again, I think it's going to be close, as Steve suggested, and I'm going to go for 24-17. Say Army's going to get a field goal and limit Troy to 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and pull off a win that they really need. They don't want, going into the LSU game. So look forward to being out there on Saturday. Any other final thoughts from our group?
I got 2.
2, go ahead.
One, Sam had written into me, sent me a note that 35-21 is his prediction.
Oh, good.
Which direction that is? That's Army. He says we're gonna ambush Troy very hard. That's sort of a Trojan horse, if you will. Now, I would be remiss in light of Sam and everything else. I had the pleasure of going Friday night to the Army sprint game against Navy, where Army was victorious 10-7. I mean, excuse me, 10. Oh heck, I don't even remember what the score was, but we were victorious. Very hard fought game, a little bit of rain, the whole thing. One of the best hits I've seen in college football happened that evening on a receiver towards the end of the game where the Navy was driving to go down to tie it or win it, and they threw an out pattern, and a cornerback came up and just hit the Navy receiver so hard his helmet popped straight up in the air, and he didn't get up off the ground. He was okay, but it was an incredible textbook hit. That if you can get a hold of that, you got to check that out. But it was a hard fought battle. Anytime that, you know, the sprint football team only really plays a one tough opponent each year, and that's Navy. And Navy's had their number a little bit during this regular season for a star match, and Army took it this year. And then that gives us the right to play the championship game back at Army towards the end of the season. And that'll be exciting to be able to go see that again. So kudos to Mark West and the sprint team.
Very good.
Steve?
Hey, Steve, just remind the audience about what constitutes sprint football. It's there's a maximum weight. Is that what the limit is?
It used to be like 157. They called it 150s back when Colonel Sam used to play, but I think it's like 170 or 172 now. So all the players are generally around the same size. It's kind of interesting because, you know, you could have a guard that could outrun a receiver just because they're all in that same kind of size, and it's evenly matched. And because they're a little bit quote unquote smaller, the field seems bigger. So, you know, hash to hash with a smaller line is a little bit wider. It's a faster game, and it's just fun to watch. Just to, you know, to watch these players move as fast as they do, and it's really fun and exciting football. And I've got a close friend whose son plays on that team, and I try to go out there and support him anytime I can.
Very good. Very good. Congratulations to the Army sprint football team. What was Sam's score again?
35-21.
35-21. Okay. Very good, guys. Well, thank you. I want to just acknowledge one of our sponsors, the New York Yankees. Appreciate their support this year, and also recognize the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, a great organization based in Tampa that takes care of the families of fallen Special Operations members. And I also want to give a shout out to a good friend, Lieutenant General Guy Swan, who we saw down at the Association of the Army Conference in Washington on Monday. Got us introduced to that. Always very gracious about our West Point coverage, and great American. And we appreciate he invited us down to get involved with the Association of the U.S. Army, and they're having a great conference. Concludes tomorrow. We got a chance to visit a little bit with the Secretary of the Army, Christine Wolmuth, at the event. Okay, guys. Well, thank you all. Steve Shalhoub calling in from South Jersey, and Richard Miller calling in from Florida, and Jack McGurk from Southern Westchester in Pelham. And it's Ken Kreitzer for CaMMVets Media. We cover cadets, midshipmen, veterans, and the military proudly since 2008. We'll see you at Mikey Stadium, 3:30 start on Saturday against Troy University. Thanks for watching, and see you on Saturday. Take care.